You see, losing weight is not a math problem. It's an information problem. The salmon, about 220 calories. These French fries, about 220 calories. It takes about 30% of the calories in the salmon to digest it. It only takes about 4% of the calories in these French fries to digest them. That leaves you with about 154 calories after digestion from the salmon for your body to use or store. It leaves you 211 leftover calories after these French fries are digested.
Lady, you seem nice and all, but you didn't make it not a math problem. You just made it a more complicated math problem. Let's keep it simple, folks. Seriously. Welcome back to Former Fat Guy Fitness. I'm Tyler, your former fat guy, and today's video marks the start of what I'm calling the 101 series. It's designed to be a beginner's guide to losing weight without overcomplicating things. I'll be going over the different aspects of general fitness and health, such as nutrition, meal prepping, cooking, shopping, cardio, weightlifting, and more. And today we'll start with the fundamental thing you need to track in order to lose weight: calories. So I'll start by going over what determines your maintenance calories, how you can set your own deficit, how you can accurately track yourself, and some Myfitnesspal tricks and tips you can use to be more efficient about it. Before we get started, I will put timestamps in the description below if you want to jump ahead or jump around. And if you do like the advice you find in this video, or you just want to help the channel out in general, consider hitting the subscribe button below. It really does help out. But let's start with what the lady with crazy eyes was talking about and go over calories in, calories out. Anyone who actually knows what they're talking about when it comes to fat loss knows that it revolves around calories in, calories out. Essentially, you need to be eating less calories every day than you burn every day. That's basically the law of thermodynamics. And what Beyond 40 is referring to in that intro was the thermic effect of food. It's one very small percentage that accounts for the calories you burn in a day. While I will still say you don't even need to think about these things, just for information's sake, here are the 4 basic things that account for your calories burned in a day, starting with your basal metabolic rate. This is how many calories your body burns at rest doing nothing, and is determined by things like your gender, your height, weight, body fat percentage, lean muscle mass, hormones, and other factors. While this does account for the majority of your daily calorie burn at around 70%, the only things in here you can genuinely affect are things like your lean muscle mass, your weight, and your hormones. But those things are mainly changed through exercise and diet, so I wouldn't go out of your way to try to manipulate your basal metabolic rate and just focus on the things you can control, like the next item on the list, which is exercise. This one is pretty self-explanatory. Movement and physical exertion will cause you to burn more calories. However, exercise will only account for about 10 to 20% of your daily calories burned. So, as the old saying goes, you can't outwork a bad diet. Don't go thinking you can run a daily marathon and still eat 5,000 calories a day. The third component to your daily calories burned is still movement, but it's the unintentional movement, called NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. This includes things like fidgeting, doing the dishes, grocery shopping, just all of the non-exercise intentional movements you make throughout the day. Now, depending on how much you move throughout the day, this number can vary greatly, but it usually accounts for about 5 to 15% of your daily calorie burn. Just like your basal metabolic rate though, I wouldn't be going out of my way to try to manipulate this number either, as it would just add another layer of complexity to managing your calories. The fourth and final aspect of your daily calorie burn is another number I really wouldn't try to manipulate, and that's what old Crazy Eyes was getting at in the beginning: the thermic effect of food. This concept is how different foods require different amounts of energy for your body to digest them. This image I found from Noah's Nutrition explains it extremely well, and how protein is by far and away the most metabolically active food and requires the most energy for your body to actually digest it. This is one of the main reasons why in my diet I get at least 35% of my calories from protein, but I'll save that for the Nutrition 101 video, and for now, let's stick to how you determine your own calorie goals for a daily basis. While these stats of what go into your daily calorie burn are interesting and good to know just for the sake of knowledge itself, it doesn't change the process or practice of setting a calorie goal and counting your calories. You don't have to go pulling out a protractor or a TI-84 calculator to calculate your calories or the thermic effect of every little thing you put in your mouth. As I have said on this channel, and I will always say on this channel, keep it simple, stupid. The process is simple. Use any basic online calorie calculator of your choice, input your information, choose a lower exercise option than you actually use because the calculators typically overestimate things. Then go 500 calories below their maintenance number they give you. Put that number into your Myfitnesspal or your tracking app of choice, track your calories every day, and weigh yourself in the morning daily. Do this every day for a month, then adjust accordingly. If you're gaining weight at the end of that month, lower your calories. If you're losing more than 2 pounds a week, increase your calories. If you're losing about 1 pound a week, then you're in the money zone and you're right where you need to be. The most important thing it comes down to when you're tracking and counting your calories is to do things consistently and to do things every day. Don't take something that's already a pain in the ass of counting calories and make it more difficult than it needs to be by overcomplicating the process with the thermic effect of food or food timing or which foods are good and which foods are bad. Just count the foods you're eating and you're doing way better than most everybody else. Now, when it comes to actually counting the calories, let me show you how that's done. The first two quick tips I have for counting calories are two that I've said before, but they were both highly instrumental for me personally. The first is one that I said in my transformation video. I would strongly encourage you to put a whiteboard up in your kitchen with your calorie and your protein goals. While Myfitnesspal is a very nice tool to have, it's just that, a tool. Until you have the habit of tracking yourself down pat, it's way too easy to walk into the kitchen, eat something, and not pull your phone out of your pocket. This is why I would encourage you to keep your goals in your face, so whenever you go to throw food in your face, you have your goals right there. The second is one I still do to this day. I start every day by planning my meals out ahead of time. This way I know when my next meal is, this way I know when I'm going to hit my protein for the day, and this keeps me from struggling to stay under my calorie goal at the end of the night. Outside of those two things, tracking yourself and counting your calories is pretty simple. Scan and search your food in Myfitnesspal, put it in the app, but there are a few tricky things when it comes to this. The first one being using a food scale, also when it comes to tracking and counting your meats and proteins, as well as using the recipe, meals, and food tools in Myfitnesspal. First and foremost, I have said this in every recipe video that I've put out. I will say this in every recipe video after this one. If you're trying to lose weight, get yourself a frickin' food scale. I use this thing 5 to 6 times every single day. It is hands down the most important tool in my weight loss arsenal. You can try to estimate your meats, you can try to estimate things with teaspoons and tablespoons, but you're going to be off enough that you'll be off by 100 calories here and 100 calories there. Well, 100 calories here and 100 calories there will wipe out a 500 calorie deficit really freaking quickly and make all the work you're doing completely pointless. So if there is one thing you should buy before starting a weight loss journey, it's a food scale. And since everybody out there can use smartphones with thousands of apps on them and use them just fine, you would think a device with 2 buttons on it would be pretty easy to use, but they're not, apparently. The only real tricky thing when it comes to a food scale is when you want to try to measure a specific item out of a container. To do that, put your container on your food scale and take your lid off. Then look for the tare button, T-A-R-E. Hit that button, it will zero the weight out. Then, whatever amount you're wanting to pull out of that container, scoop it out. It will show that number on the scale with a negative in front of it. Ignore that negative. It's not actually gone negative. It's just showing you that much weight has been removed from the scale. Do that. And it's that simple. It's much simpler than the next thing I'm going to show you, which is measuring and deciding what nutritional values to use for your meats and your proteins. This is because some cut of meat are really fatty. Some are seriously lean. Should you weigh your meats when they're raw? Should you weigh them when they're cooked? The most important part to this is just doing it consistently and doing it the same every time so you can adjust later down the road. For me personally, how I do things is I weigh all my meats raw. If you take a piece of meat that is raw and a piece of meat that is cooked, they'll have the same nutritional value. They're just going to weigh differently because when you cook meat, it loses water weight, so it will be lighter when it's cooked than when it's raw. For example, this piece of chicken breast, raw, weighs 7.75 ounces, but once it gets cooked, it weighs 6.75 ounces. However, it has the same nutritional value. This means that a 3-ounce piece of raw meat and a 3-ounce piece of cooked meat will be the same weight, but the cooked meat will be much denser in nutritional value and denser in calories. This is why I choose to weigh my meats raw, because it allows me to underestimate calories instead of overestimating them. The second thing to keep in mind when measuring your proteins is the cut of meat. You could do a search online or on Myfitnesspal for the same cut of meat and find hundreds of different options. So I use 2 rules to keep things simple. The first one is I try to find an average of 3 to 5 different nutritional values for a cut of meat. The best one I've found and the one I use the most is the USDA. and then I try to find the closest option for calories and protein in Myfitnesspal. Or another thing I'll do is I'll go into Myfitnesspal and see if a bunch of choices are consistent. Like for this top sirloin steak, for a 4-ounce cut of meat, it says it's about 210 calories with 23 grams of protein. So I just go with that every time I have top sirloin. While it might not be perfect and it might not be exact, it will at least get me in the right ballpark so I can start tracking things. Which leads me to rule number 2, which is every time you go to eat that cut of meat, use the same option in Myfitnesspal so you can keep things consistent. This will allow you to adjust your calories better going down the road if you need to. While I have my recommendations for how to do things on meat, if you have a different way you want to do things or you want to count things in a different way, that's fine. Remember, I'll emphasize, the most important part is consistency and doing things the same way from meal to meal so you can adjust your calories accurately going down the road. Now, when it comes down to actually using Myfitnesspal, I highly recommend learning to use the recipes, meals, and food tools that they have as their massive time savers. This way, you don't have to input every single item anytime you go to cook a meal you normally have. Generally, I use recipes for meals that I can scan or search for all the ingredients, but if a meal or dessert I'm making uses multiple recipes within it, like my sweet potato pie or some of my meal preps, then I'll use the meal category. This is because the meal section allows you to use recipes, meals, and food creations all within one meal, while recipes only let you use single ingredients. For example, using the meal section allows me to use a filling recipe and my homemade cereal as a crust when putting things in for my sweet potato pie. When it comes to the servings or dividing a larger recipe into a single meal, there's a couple tricks that I use. The main one is basing the nutritional value of the meal off the weight of the dish. To do this in the app, you put all the ingredients into the recipe or meal and set the serving size to 1. If you're doing this in the meal section, it will automatically be set to 1. Then, when you finish whatever you're making, you just weigh the food and put that in the title of the name. Then, you can take however much you want to eat, divide it by the total weight to get your percentage of that one serving. Then take that percentage you get, put it into the recipe in the app, and put it in your app for your meal. You could also just choose how many servings you want a recipe to make, and then take the total weight of a recipe, divide it by the servings you want, and that will give you the weight per serving. The easiest method to weigh your recipes is to take the container you're going to put it in while it's empty and weigh it. Then weigh that same container once the recipe is in it and subtract out the weight of the empty container. Now, that was a lot of ways and weights, so to keep it simple, here's an example. To figure out the size of a serving of my loaded potato casserole, I started by weighing the casserole dish it was going to go in. Then I weighed the dish once I finished cooking everything and put it in there. I knew I wanted to make 4 servings, so I took the final weight with the food in there, subtracted the weight of the empty dish, and then divided that by 4. This told me each serving would be about 625 grams. The second trick I use is a much simpler method, and it's what I usually do for my meal preps. In this trick, simply get rid of the scale. Then divide the entire dish between 4 meal prep containers or however many you want to use. Sure, one of the meals might be bigger than another, but remember, calories is a long-term average game. The original dish has the same nutritional value on it no matter how you divide it. So whether you eat 4 meals that are the exact same size, or you have 2 big meals or 2 small meals or even 3 meals, you're going to be getting the same nutritional value either way. So if you're meticulous like I am, feel free to weigh out every single serving, or you can follow the rule of the channel and keep it simple, stupid, and just divide it up between however many containers and meals that you want to have. I hope some of these tips and tricks on counting your calories helps you out when you're getting started. I wish I would have known some of these when I was getting started, such as not worrying about using the exact right number on your proteins or how to use Myfitnesspal better early on to save myself some time. Either way, remember, the most important thing when it comes to counting calories is to do it consistently, every day, and to do it the same way from meal to meal so you can adjust your goals when you need to. Don't overcomplicate things by worrying about food timing or what food is good, what food is bad, or the thermic effect of foods. Just count your calories and you're on the right path. Remember, everything you're doing to track yourself is based off of estimates, averages over a long time, and not just a single day, and you will need to adjust your goals as you progress. If you found the advice in this video helpful, hit the like button down below. If you want to see more coming out of the 101 series, or you just want to help the channel at all, hit the subscribe button. And if you have any opinions or questions, or you need help on anything specifically, let me know in the comments down below. But in the meantime, thanks for watching.